Now, as some of you may know, I'm a huge fan of the DC animated universe, and their version of the Legion of Doom was good, but I gotta say the version in this movie and how it's handled is probably the best version that we've ever gotten. Justice League Doom. Now, Justice League Doom is a DC animated movie, came out in 2012, and this came out a little bit before the whole DC animated direct-to-video movie shared universe really hit big with Justice League War that kicked off that. But even so, DC was already putting out some really good animated movies in this direct-to-video market with stuff like Under the Red Hood, The Dark Knight Returns Parts 1 and 2, and of course, Justice League Doom. And Justice League Doom really is how to do a Legion of Doom story right. It takes most of its story from the Tower of Babel comic, which I admittedly haven't read, so I can't really say how close it follows, but it takes the concept from that book of Batman secretly having plans to incapacitate the Justice League and those plans being hacked, and now the Justice League is in mortal danger and Batman has to face the consequences of that. And it ties it in with the formation of the Legion of Doom, from the old Super Friends cartoons, the anti-Justice League. So already it has my attention because it combines Batman's paranoia of an out-of-control Justice League with the Legion of Doom. And as someone who did enjoy the Super Friends cartoon when I was a kid, and honestly I still do a little bit to this day, whenever the Legion of Doom is brought up or formed in any continuity, I'm intrigued because I want to know how are they going to do it in comparison to the Super Friends show. But before I get into the Legion of Doom stuff, the Justice League side of this story already has a huge advantage because, well, for one, it's a Bruce Timm produced DC animated movie, and two, Andrea Romano was in charge of the voice cast, so of course she brought in all of the old favorites from the DC animated universe. You got Kevin Conroy back as Batman, Tim Daly back as Superman, and pretty much everybody else. If they were in the DCAU Justice League show, they're voicing the same character here, and even though it's been about 10 years since the DCAU wrap, they haven't skipped a beat. They are just as convincing as these characters as they were then, and it's kind of better now because it's a more mature story. It's a PG-13 animated movie, so they're allowed to get away with some darker tones, a little bit of language here and there, although the language is still pretty clean. I'd say it's around PG levels of swearing, but where this movie does get a little bit more mature is with some of the story elements, the feeling of betrayal, and the actual violence on screen. There's a surprising amount of blood in here for an animated DC movie, and while it never quite reaches the levels of gore as The New Frontier did, it's still pretty intense. There's a moment where Vandal Savage gets his throat cut by Cheetah and he just bleeds out on the floor, which if you don't know who Vandal Savage is and don't know that he can just come back from that, it's actually a pretty funny moment until he gets back up. But another example of just how dark this movie is willing to go is when Batman gets attacked by Bane and he's buried alive in the casket with the corpse of his father, and he takes out his keys and he just starts punching the roof of the casket until he can just bust his way into the dirt, and the dirt comes in and then he can crawl his way out. But while he's punching, you see his knuckles get really bloody and you see drips of blood going on his face, and it's just a really intense struggle to get out of this situation. And while I said that the voice cast is basically the same as the DC animated universe, one notable difference is the inclusion of Nathan Fillion as Hal Jordan, Green Lantern. And I gotta say, Nathan Fillion is a fantastic Hal Jordan. I'm pretty sure this was the first time Nathan Fillion voiced Hal Jordan in an animated capacity, but it definitely isn't the last, because Nathan Fillion's got that roguish energy that is so intrinsic in Hal Jordan's personality that he just feels like the perfect cast. So let's dive into this story. So the movie opens and it really has nothing to do with the Legion of Doom. It doesn't really have anything to do with the Justice League. It's just Batman on kind of a solo mission against the Royal Flush Gang. But then once Batman gets revealed by the Royal Flush Gang, the Justice League comes in and backs him up, and it was this sting operation all along. And I will say I really enjoy this interpretation of the Royal Flush Gang. For me, this will always be the definitive version in my headcanon. I know that there have been a lot of different versions used over the years, and in the DCAU alone, I think they're up to 3 interpretations of the Royal Flush Gang, because you got Ace. He's this big hulking robot, he's the muscle of the group, and he goes toe to toe with Superman. But anyway, the Justice League shows up and we have a big exciting opening action scene that establishes the style of the movie and all the characters' powers, and it ends by introducing Cyborg. Now Cyborg is not an official member of the Justice League. He's kind of the new guy. He's on probation. You know, they're kind of looking to see, is he Justice League material? So he shows up at the end to analyze this piece of tech, and they all go their separate ways, and we follow Batman back to the Batcave, and he gets out and he's wounded. You know, he's got all these cuts from the playing cards. Him and Alfred have some pretty funny banter back and forth, and that's something that is kind of underrated about this movie. The Alfred dynamic is really funny here, even though he only gets like one scene. And it just shows that in this movie, nothing's really wasted. It's such a tight script that even some of these smaller scenes, like with Alfred, they still give it the charm and wit that you would expect from a Batman-Alfred late-night encounter, and the movie's all the better for it. But unbeknownst to Batman, Mirror Master secretly got into the Batcave through the Batmobile's rearview mirror, and now he's in the Batcave, and he's in his hologram form, so he's not setting off the motion detectors, and he has this little piece of tech, and it hacks the Bat computer, and he gets all these files on the Justice League and then pieces out. And it's about here where we get our proper introduction to the Legion of Doom. And the first member, aside from Mirror Master, that we get to see is Bane. And Bane is walking through the swamp of Louisiana, and he fights an alligator that kind of comes up and attacks him. And I love this little moment for so many reasons. For one, it establishes Bane and his venom, that it pumps him up when he has to fight something intimidating. Second, it's a reference to the Super Friends cartoon, because whenever it pans the swamp where the Legion of Doom is hiding out, you see this one shifty-eyed alligator. So bringing the alligator into this movie is just a really cool reference. And third, I wouldn't be surprised if this was also a reference to Killer Croc, because Croc and Bane have had this rivalry in the comics for as long as Bane's been around. The first time Bane came on the scene, he broke Killer Croc's arm, so having Bane fight an alligator just feels right. But once Bane is finished with the gator, we're very quickly introduced to the rest of the Legion of Doom, and it's comprised of Metallo, Star Sapphire, Mirror Master, Malatha, I think I pronounced that right, Cheetah, and Vandal Savage, who is the leader of this version of the Legion of Doom. Sadly, in this version, we don't get to see Lex Luthor take charge at the center podium and command the Legion of Doom, but nostalgia aside, I think Vandal Savage makes a bit more sense to be the leader of a Legion of Doom, because he's very old, he's got millions of dollars to set up this secret base and all the schemes that they would supposedly make in the future. And he's always had that world domination mindset where someone like Lex Luthor is just greedy and power hungry. But Vandal Savage has a very specific reason for bringing this group of Legionnaires together, and it's basically to divide and conquer. They'll each take on their respective Justice Leaguer and take them out. And how are they going to take them out? Well, all the plans that Mirror Master took from the Batcave spells out how to best attack and incapacitate each member of the Justice League. And the whole middle section of this movie is seeing the really ingenious ways the Legion of Doom is able to take out each member of the Justice League. Like I said earlier, Bane buried Batman in the graves of his parents. Superman gets shot with a kryptonite bullet. Martian Manhunter gets tricked into drinking the soda with magnesium in it, which he does sweat out through his pores, but the magnesium he's sweating out is highly flammable, and he gets lit on fire, which is his major weakness, and he's just burning, and he goes in the water and he's still burning, and there's no real way to turn it off aside from an antidote. In kind of a similar way, Wonder Woman gets poisoned by a scratch from Cheetah, and that makes her hallucinate and see everybody as Cheetah, so she'll just fight anybody on the street because she thinks it's Cheetah, and in the process exhaust herself. Her heart might give out, she might just collapse right there. And my personal favorite traps are for the Flash and Green Lantern. The Flash is pretty straightforward. He gets tricked into having this bomb bolted to his wrist, and from then on it's basically speed. If he doesn't start running, it'll explode. If he slows down, it'll explode. If he tries to phase through it, it'll explode. Which I love a good Keanu Reeves reference, and it does make sense for the Flash, so A+. But what they do with Green Lantern is a little more complicated. They set up this elaborate scenario, this Kobayashi Maru, it's a no-win scenario, where the whole idea is to trick Hal Jordan into thinking that he made the wrong decision, even though there was no other outcome, really. But on top of that, the cave that they're in is being pumped with a version of Scarecrow's fear toxin, so he grows more afraid the longer he's in there, which fear is the enemy of will, so that's not good for Hal's confidence. And in the end, he gets a woman named Carol, who looks suspiciously like Star Sapphire killed, even though it's not a real woman, it's an android, but with the fear toxin and the guilt of this no-win scenario, he thinks it's real, and it ultimately breaks his spirit and he gives up the ring. So no more Green Lantern. And in what I think is a reference to Kraven's Last Hunt, Batman, through sheer force of will, punches his way out of the grave, and he comes back up, and he quickly finds out that all the other Justice Leaguers are being attacked in ways that he put into the Batcomputer. So now he knows that he is partially responsible for the situation they're all in. But the one wild card, the person that wasn't in any of Batman's plans that got hacked, was Cyborg. Because like I said earlier, Cyborg isn't technically a member of the Justice League yet, so this whole time he's been perfectly fine, and he actually helps Wonder Woman get over her whole toxin, the cheetah situation. And now Batman, Wonder Woman, and Cyborg systematically try to save the rest of the Justice League, and they do. They get them all back, and now it's time for a rematch. They find the Legion of Doom's headquarters in Louisiana, and they fight, they throw down. And the way this rematch is shot, at least the beginning of it, you have the Justice League lined up on one side and the Legion of Doom lined up on the other side, which again calls back from the old Challenge of the Super Friends intro. But I also wonder if the Russo brothers watched this when they were coming up with the airport sequence in Civil War, because they had a very similar two sides lining up and then they charge each other. But even more than that, when they hit, you see individual conflicts really quickly, some of them in the air, some of them on the ground, depending on their powers. And that happens here too, almost shot for shot. So I don't know, maybe the Russo brothers are secretly DC fans. Don't tell Disney. But if I'm being honest, this climax that involves a solar flare coming back to Earth to wipe out half or 2/3 of the planet is probably the least interesting part of the whole movie, because for me what really gets me invested is seeing the creative ways that the Legion of Doom individually picks off each member of the Justice League. So when the plot devolves into this kind of standard ticking clock of, oh, we gotta stop the missile, oh, we didn't stop the missile, now we gotta stop this solar flare from wiping out half of the Earth, it kind of starts to lose me a bit. But luckily that part doesn't really go on for too long. They resolve it fairly quickly, and now we're back to the really interesting stuff, because now that the Legion of Doom has been defeated, now the Justice League has some housekeeping to do. For one, they officially let Cyborg into the league, so, you know, applause all around for that. But more importantly, they have to deal with the huge breach of confidence and trust that Batman just happened to have detailed files on how to eliminate the Justice League. And that concept for me is what really elevates this movie from being, you know, your typical DC animated action movie to something that really is a good Justice League story. Because they actually talk about it, and you see both sides. You see how Batman having all these plans and keeping it secret likely made him come off as a lot more suspicious and not trustworthy than he originally intended. But at the same time, how many times have we seen an evil version of the Justice League, whether it's the Justice Lords or the crime syndicate or just evil Superman? It's happened so many times where of course there would need to be some kind of contingency plan, and like Batman says, the plans weren't meant to kill them, just incapacitate them long enough for whatever's wrong with them to be fixed, or long enough to have them locked up in some supermax prison indefinitely, if that be the case. And fortunately, Superman does see the value in this, so at the very end of the movie, Batman's about to leave because he doesn't really want them to put it to a vote, because if they can't see the danger of an out-of-control Justice League, he doesn't need to be here. So he leaves, but Superman stops him on the transporter pad, and he asked Batman a very important question. Earlier, Batman said that the plans made against him weren't his, which implies that Batman had contingencies for every member of the Justice League except himself, which comes off as pretty arrogant. But Batman puts those fears to rest because he says that his contingency plan is the Justice League. Batman doesn't have any powers. Any member of the Justice League could probably subdue him or kill him if they really needed to. Because for all of Batman's genius and gadgets, he really is only human. So that makes Superman smile, and he gives him this little lead-lined box, and Batman opens it, and it's the kryptonite bullet. So at least the relationship between Batman and Superman is somewhat repaired, even if Batman is leaving the Justice League. And that's basically Justice League Doom. It is a very solid Justice League story. So if you're out at the movie theater and you just saw League of Super Pets and thought it was nice, but you want something with a little more meat on its bones to give you a good example of what Justice League stories are capable of, this is a prime example, and I can't recommend it enough. But now I turn it over to you guys. What do you think of Justice League Doom? Have you seen it? Have you even heard about it? It's on HBO Max. Check it out, and whatever you think, let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more content, and hit the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a video. And as always, I'm Colby. This is my Nerdy Talk, and I'll see you in the next video.